Good evening, everybody. So we are going to start the API and ICP organized master class that is basically based on the case-based discussion. So today we will discuss a case of respiratory disease. Case will be discussed, presented by Dr. Ankon Pathak. He is a junior resident of KPC Medical College. To discuss, we have Professor Dijen Das. He is a professor of medicine from Silchar Medical College, Assam. We have Professor Supriya Sarkar. He is the professor of chest medicine from College of Medicine and Sagar Datta Hospital, Kolkata. Also, we have old guard Professor Minal Kanti Roy, who needs no introduction. So, also we have Professor Jayanto Panda. He is the head of the Department of Medicine of SCB Medical College, Cuttack, and few more luminaries will join and they will join in the discussion. So to start with, I request Dr. Ankon, please present your case.
Yes, sir. So is it visible?
Very nice visible.
Yes, sir. Good evening, teachers. I thank you for giving me the opportunity to present this case on fever, patient who presented with fever and cough. So this was the patient particulars. This is a patient, 38-year-old female subject residing in Barrackpur, a homemaker by profession. She was examined on the 30th of May 2021. She presented it to us with a history of chest pain 1 month back from the date of admission, with a dry cough for the last 1 month and fever for the last 10 days. Regarding the history of present illness, the patient was asymptomatic a month back when she developed chest pain. The history of pain was such that it lasted for 5 to 7 days, acute in onset. It was right-sided in origin and localized to the anterior aspect of the chest wall. She described aggravate on taking deep inspiration or coughing. It would partially relieve on lying on the right side, responded partially to oral acetaminophen, and it was not associated with fever initially at that point of time. The patient also reported of cough without expectoration for the last 30 days. However, there was no diurnal variation of cough and was present throughout the day. The cough did not increase during or after swallowing of food or liquids. The patient also denied any history of dyspepsia or burning sensation in the throat. The cough would not respond to antitussives, which on seeing the medication, they were without any bronchodilators. And there was no history of any hemoptysis. 10 days back, the patient reported that she developed a low-grade fever, which was not associated with chills and rigor. The exact nature of fever could not be elicited because the patient would consume oral paracetamol during her febrile episodes. The patient also reports of weight loss in the form of loose-fitting clothes in the last 1 month with reduced appetite. However, we did not have any previous records about her past weights. Regarding the history of fever, there was no history of any headache, rash, no history of yellowish discoloration of sclera or urine, pain abdomen, joint pain, vomiting, burning sensation of urine or increased frequency of urine, not associated with chills and rigor, and there was no history suggestive of Raynaud's phenomena. The patient then developed shortness of breath 10 days back. The breathlessness was initially insidious in onset. It was present while walking up the flight of stairs initially. However, as time progressed, it rapidly worsened. And then she started complaining of breathlessness even during routine day-to-day activities. However, on further inquiry, the shortness of breath was not associated with wheezing. The shortness of breath would be aggravated by lying on the left side and was relieved by lying on the right side or sitting. There was no history suggestive of orthopnea or nocturnal increase in the shortness of breath. Output or abdominal distensions. Other important negative history, she does not give any history of night sweats. There was no evidence of or history of rash, palpitation, altered sensorium, syncope, a contact with COVID-19 patient, or runny nose, sneezing, or hoarseness of voice. So was in short the timeline of events. She presented with chest pain, which was initially there for the first 5 to 6 days. It was associated with dry cough 1 month back. Then there was progressive weight loss and followed by fever and progressive shortness of breath for the last 7 to 10 days. There was no history of hypertension, type 2 diabetes mellitus, or tuberculosis in the past. Her of an 8-year-old male child delivered through a cesarean section. There was no maternal complication post-delivery. Her appetite was decreased since the last 2 months. No addiction. There were bowel and bladder habits were normal. No history of passive smoking. No history of exposure to fumes from burning fuel. There was no history of exposure to pets. No history of any drug intake, and there was no history of any abortion. So should I stop here?
Yeah, you summarize it.
Yes. So a non-hypertensive, non-diabetic female subject presented to us with history of dry cough with chest pain 1 month back. The chest pain persisted for 5 to 7 days initially, following which the chest pain was relieved. However, the dry cough persisted. There was no associated hemoptysis, no positional variation of cough. She also reported a weight loss over the last month by saying that her clothes are currently loose fitting. 10 days back, she started to develop a low-grade fever without chill and rigor and was on paracetamol for fever. The fever was accompanied by progressive shortness of breath, which hampered her day-to-day activities and was aggravated by lying towards the left side.
Now, from history, what is your impression?
So from my history, the history was initially it decreased on the lateral decubitus position and followed by dry cough. There was fever and shortness of breath. So when we talk of a respiratory system, it can either be a lesion in the parenchyma, it can either be a pleural lesion, it can either be an interstitial, or it can be an airway disease. Since the patient complains of cough without expectoration, I can rule out a parenchymal disease from this history. In regards with shortness of breath not associated with wheezing, I can also rule out to a certain degree that airway disease is not present. In comparison with an interstitial disease and a pleural disease, since the history is the history of short.
Be specific. What is your impression from?
I would think that the lesion is in the pleura, a pleural pathology.
Why not in parenchyma?
Sir, because there was no history of expectoration. So parenchymal lesions usually present with cough with expectoration. So I would not think of a parenchymal lesion at this point of time.
Why you are telling it is pleural disease?
So because there is a history suggestive of a pleuritic chest pain with dry cough and
pleuritic chest pain. How will differentiate from pleuritic chest pain from the pericardial pain?
Yes.
Sir, pleural type of chest pain is a sharp stabbing type of pain. It is localized and also it is in the initial part, it can be associated with a pleural rub. Next is it is biphasic, whereas a pericardial rub.
From history.
Sir, it
relation with cough.
Sir, the pleuritic type of chest pain is associated with a dry cough. It is also a stabbing type of chest pain, and it is also and also relieves on one lateral decubitus position.
Is there any relation with respiration?
Yes, sir. Sir, the pleuritic type of chest pain will increase on taking a deep breath because of the friction in between the two layers of the pleura.
And whatever the character of the pericardial rub?
Sir, the pericardial rub is inconstant or evanescent, and it is superficial, and it also does not vary with the phases of respiration.
Is pericardium sensitive to pain?
Yes, sir. It is a pain sensitive.
Is it?
Pericardium is sensitive to pain or not? Think and tell.
So the pleura is sensitive. The pericardium is not sensitive to pain.
Yeah.
So then pericardial pain is due to
So it is
due to inflammation of the
Inflammation,
adjacent
yes.
pleura. So the
Yes.
characteristic is same, but it is central in location, and it will increase with deglutition and decrease with stooping forward. And pleuritic chest pain is usually in the lateral side. Why you are telling? You have ruled out parenchymal lesion.
So because there is no since there is no evidence of cough with expectoration, that is why I was.
Do you know that in females, expectoration is very rare? Unlike males. So they are maybe associated, but the history is not suggestive of parenchymal or airway disease.
Yes.
Okay. So
Yes.
what is the etiology, probable etiology of this pleuritic disease?
Sir, I would think of an inflammatory pleuritic chest pain in the initial part, probably because of pleuritis and or the acute dry pleurisy. And
What is the etiology?
Sir,
What is the etiology?
Sir,
Number one, the pathological diagnosis, then etiological diagnosis. From history, what is your suggestion?
Sir, it can either be an infective cause, it can either be tuberculosis, or it can also be
What are the
malignant.
point in favor of tuberculosis?
Sir, since there is fever with dry cough and certain amount of weight loss, we can think these are the points favoring tubercular etiology.
Ankon,
type
it
of
can
fever?
be, yes, yes. Ankon,
What
it
type
can be
of
due
fever
to,
you are
yes,
oh,
yes.
so,
Continue.
So what type of fever you are expecting? What are the characteristic constitutional symptoms of tuberculosis?
Sir, fever with night sweat is the characteristic constitutional symptom of tuberculosis with weight loss.
And what type
Will
of fever?
Sir, classically, it can be a quotidian type of intermittent fever. It can be a quotidian type of intermittent fever, sir.
What about evening rise of temperature?
Sir, it is usually present, but in this case, I asked her, there was no presence of evening rise of temperature, and there was no evidence
why
of
there
night
is
sweat.
evening rise of temperature in tuberculosis?
So I don't know.
What is the normal temperature variations?
So
Dr.
usually,
Sarkar,
sir,
you tell to the audience.
Now, normally it is the normal temperature is lowest in the morning and highest in the evening. So if there is any chronic inflammation, then there is a shifting up to 2 or 3 degree, 1 or 2 degree, and so that in the evening that crosses the threshold. It is the normal variations occurs in chronic inflammation. My one suggestion is for students that everybody should read the first few chapters of Harrison's textbook. Here, the fever, chest pain, cough, etc. are very nicely described. So
Yes.
your diagnosis is tubercular pleural effusion, probably.
yes, sir, probably.
Yeah, probably from clinical. Why it is not malignancy?
Yes.
What
Sir,
are the point against malignancy?
Sir, number one, there was no history of smoking or passive smoking in this patient. Number two, in case of malignancy, so she would have complained of more severe weight loss over prolonged duration. She would probably have been more emaciated, or on presentation, she would have looked more emaciated in malignancy than in
Tell me
what we
one symptom present in this patient that probably exclude malignancy.
Sir, fever can fever. Sir, chest
Fever
pain.
may occur in solid tumor, any solid tumor.
Yes, so chest pain can sometimes
So
not be
pleuritic
present
chest
in
pain, pleuritic chest pain is unusual in malignant
Yes, sir.
pleural effusion because pleuritic chest pain indicates that inflammation of the
Inflammation.
pleura. So
Yes.
it may be inflammatory disease or infective disease.
Yes.
So go for examination.
No, Ankon, Dr. Monoranjan Behera want to do some comment. Dr. Manoranjan,
Yes. Yeah.
you put your comment. Dr. Manoranjan, please unmute. What is Dr. Manoranjan?
But by this time, tell us a few conditions where you can come across with a dry cough.
Sir, dry coughs are the most important cause are acute laryngitis, acute pharyngitis. Sir, it can also be present in AC inhibitor induced cough, in postnasal drip, in cough variant, in interstitial lung disease, and also in pulmonary tuberculosis.
Ankon,
Yes.
what is the difference between platypnea and trypopnea?
Sir, platypnea is defined as increase of shortness of breath on sitting or standing position, whereas trypopnea is defined as increased
No,
shortness.
first platypnea. What are the common one? Mention one or two common conditions
Sir,
where
yes.
you will get the platypnea and why?
Sir, platypnea we can get in intracardiac shunts like patent foramen oval or ASD, and also in hepatopulmonary syndrome.
Hepatopulmonary. What happens in hepatopulmonary?
Sir,
Suppose in cirrhosis, what happens?
Yes, sir.
Cirrhosis, we can get the platypnea. What is the mechanism? Why we
Sir,
get?
so what happens is, sir, in cirrhosis or in hepatopulmonary syndrome, sir, the increased blood flow through the basilar regions or during standing position increases, and hence there is a mismatch in between the VP mismatch. So this is the reason why there is increased shortness of breath.
There is arteriovenous communication.
Communication.
During sitting or standing, more blood come to the base of the, so more shunting. So more
Dr. Ankon, may I tell something? I'm Dr.
Yes, yes.
Shoikat Datto.
Shankar, please.
You told that there is increased blood flow in the basal areas. But why so? Why is there increased blood flow in the basal areas in cirrhosis of liver?
Sir, I don't know.
Shankar, bole de.
This is because cirrhosis, the metabolism of the vasodilatory substances are reduced. So there is increased circulation of the vasodilatory substances, and that causes the vasodilatation, and so the increase in the arteries and arterioles which are normally collapsed. That causes the shunting of the blood. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Also, the high level of estrogen causes the dilatation, like the spider, dilatation of the basal vessels. So in standing, there is more shunting of the deoxygenated blood to the heart. So we get the more distress. Lying down, opposite happens. What is trypopnea?
So trypopnea is defined as dyspnea that occurs in lateral decubitus position.
Now, suppose patient have lesion in the right side. In which
Yes,
position patient will get relief?
Sir, on lying towards the right side, because the healthy lung will go above, and hence it can expand to its maximum capabilities.
And one question asked by Professor Sarkar regarding the pericardial rub. You it's difficult to show. At least you describe in which position you will see the pericardial rub.
So left lower sternal border.
That is the position. What is the
Yes,
patient's position?
So patient will be sitting and stooping forward, sir.
Yes, like a dog's
Very good.
position.
Yes, sir.
Very good.
Very good. Dog's
Very
position, you will put stethoscope from below. Okay,
One
very
word
good.
I like to add with this previous question of hepatorenal, commonly examiner asks us what is orthodeoxia. So
Orthodeoxia, yes.
So
that is
decrease of
also
decrease
so
of
you know that the fall of SpO2 by more than
SpO2, sir.
4%
Yes, sir.
on standing position, and that will give you a bedside idea about the patient is probably some shunt in the lower area of the basal areas of the lung, for which reason you can get this phenomenon. So should we proceed?
Yes.
Professor
Yes.
Sarkar, should we proceed?
Yes.
So
Dr.
The
Manoranjan.
cause of orthodeoxia is AV malformation also.
Yeah,
In AV malformation,
And-
there is.
next one.
Okay, then we can proceed to.
So this was my provisional diagnosis: a right-sided pleural effusion due to a tuberculosis, malignancy, and pneumonia. And although not possible, but still I included this as a right-sided mass lesion.
Okay. Dr. Joyanto Panda and Dr. Monoranjan raised hand. Want to do some comment. Dr. Panda and Dr. Monoranjan. Joyanto, where are you? Joyanto in chamber. Dr. Giridhari Kaur, your any special comment? Any question?
That's fine. Presentation is okay. From the history, it is very clear that it's a pleural effusion. The case of pruritus proceeding to pleural effusion from the very history. And cause maybe tuberculosis, maybe malignancy. We cannot right away exclude this. So let us hear from him the physical findings and other things.
Dr. H.S. Pathak has raised hand. Dr. Pathak, please comment. Dr. H.S. Pathak. Hey, Kausik. Dr. Pathak ke tumi ye kore dao, post koro. He has raised hand. Anyhow, continue general survey. Yes.
The patient was alert, conscious, cooperative, prefers to lie
And
on the
only
right.
positive things, only positive
So
and
the
relevant things.
So patient prefers to lie on the right lateral side. There was moderate pallor, and his respiratory rate was 28 breaths per minute, abdominal thoracic in type. The pulse was 74 beats per minute.
Normal
regular.
or abnormal?
So the,
Respiration is not,
so the pulse respiratory rate ratio is a little altered.
no, regarding respiratory,
So it is there is evidence of tachypnea in this patient, sir.
anything else?
No, sir.
Huh? In female,
No,
you are expecting what type of
Sir, abdominal thoracic is usually not present in female
in female?
subjects.
It is abnormal.
Abdominal. Sir.
Yes. Continue.
Regarding the systemic examination.
No, okay. Nutrition you mentioned. Nutrition.
Yes, sir. So normal, sir.
Okay.
So BMI was also normal, 25.47, sir.
Okay.
Any lymph nodes have you checked for?
No, sir. There was no palpable lymph nodes.
Any evidence of clubbing?
No, sir. There was no clubbing. So systemic examination regarding the respiratory tract, the upper respiratory tract, there was no. It was normal, sir. I'm not telling since there was nothing abnormal. I'm going over to the lower respiratory tract. On inspection, the chest was elliptical in
Regarding
shape.
upper respiratory,
Yes, sir.
we should include, though it is not a part, we should include the upper
Upper
the
respiratory tract.
oral cavity
Okay. Yes.
within the upper respiratory infection examination.
Yes, sir. Chest was elliptical in shape. The chest movement appears to be reduced on the right side. The intercostal spaces on the right side appear full. The accessory muscles of respiration are working. No dilated veins. There was no scars or sinuses, and there was no evidence of any kyphosis, kyphoscoliosis, or drooping of shoulder.
Now, please do not say that appears to be, because in examination we are
Yes, sir.
we actually notice whether you are capable of being the specialist. So your
Yes, sir.
finding is final, and you should be
Yes, sir.
confident about your findings.
Yes. So the inspectory findings on palpation were confirmed. The trachea was deviated to the left. The apex beat was in the left fifth intercostal space, half an inch outside the mid-clavicular line. There was no intercostal tenderness, and vocal fremitus was reduced on the entire right side of the chest.
From this, what is your impression?
So there is a lesion which is pushing the trachea to the left side. So probably a pleural effusion is what I would also think.
Mediastinal
No.
shifting is due to
There is
pushing.
so there is evidence of trachea shifting and apex beat. So there is mediastinal shifting.
Mediastinal shifting is due to
Yes, sir.
pushing.
Or pulling.
So
How will decide?
I will. Since the trachea is deviated to the left side.
You come
also.
to the previous slide.
Yes, sir.
Inspection. Chest movement appeared to be reduced on the right side. Now trachea is shifted to the left side.
Left side.
Either can be pulled from the left side or pushed from the right side.
Yes, sir.
In which side you think the pathology?
So I would think that the pathology is on the right side.
Why?
Sir, because the chest is
Movement.
reduced on chest movement is
There
reduced
is a
on the right
movement.
side.
Movement
Yes, sir.
will dictate the site of
Yes.
possible site of the pathology.
Yes, sir.
Now, from the previous slide, one important question I asked regarding the nutrition. How will assess the nutrition? Because it is a possible case of tuberculosis. What are the methods you will assess the nutrition?
So skin fold thickness.
Now,
Sir,
what is, how will measure?
sir, we will take a skin fold thickness and then see the amount of thickness.
How much?
that-
How much skin fold you will? Where you will put the hand?
So we can put
See,
it over the
your thumb and
and
index,
the index
finger,
finger, sir.
you will put in a 3 centimeter apart. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Then you lift 1 centimeter above the surface. Okay. Then you below the surface, below your skin of the index finger, you put the caliper. So 3 centimeter apart, 2 finger, and lift for one finger. Then you put the below the lower border of your finger, you put the caliper. And what is the cutoff value of triceps skin fold thickness?
So
If more
So it
than
is
10
in
centimeter, more than 10 is normal. Less than 3 is
10
severe
is-
depletion. Okay.
yes, sir.
In between is the borderline.
Yes, sir.
And what are the medium circumference?
So mid upper arm circumference, sir, it is
Now,
usually
first, where we will put the tape?
sir in between the acromion process and the
Olecranon process.
olecranon process.
Okay. Now, what is the diameter? What is the cutoff values?
Sir, the normal range is around, sir, 26 to 30 centimeters is the normal range, sir. Anything less than that is
No. More than 15 centimeter normal, 12.5 centimeter হচ্ছে severe malnutrition, and in between হচ্ছে mild to moderate.
yes.
So 12.5 and 15. This is the two cutoff. Okay. This is very important, nutritional assessment. Then there are other parameters, BMI, abdominal fold thickness. Okay. Because malnutrition consider two arms. One is undernutrition, one is overnutrition.
Obesity. Yes.
One is overnutrition. Both
Yes.
are malnutrition. Okay. So these are the tests for the undernutrition. Then abdominal girth and others will see for the overnutrition. Chalo.
But can you go to the previous slide? Yeah. So accessory muscles of respirations are working. You
Yes,
have
sir.
written.
Yes, sir.
What do you mean by that?
So
What are the
there-
accessory? Just for a recapitulation,
Yes, sir.
just 30 seconds, you just recapitulate the accessory muscles of respiration.
So there is flaring of the alanesi, sternocleidomastoid, the scalenus muscle, the latissimus dorsi, the trapezius, the serratus anterior, and the pectoralis major are the accessory muscles.
Good.
Very
Which is
good.
the main muscles of respiration? Out of all these muscles, intercostal,
Sir,
extracostal, or extra-
So the diaphragm and the intercostal.
Okay,
and
fine.
extra-
Okay, fine. Okay. Go to the next slide.
Next slide. Movement.
So movement of the chest wall, it was reduced in the anteriorly in the supraclavicular, infraclavicular, inframammary, and also in the posterior region, whereas it was normal in the left side. Shall I proceed, sir?
Dr. Behara, please.
Sir, I was not able to connect actually.
Okay,
Okay, you tell. Yes,
please,
Moranjan.
Moranjan,
Please tell.
You put your comment.
No, sir, let him continue. Let him continue.
Okay.
Sure.
Percussion, direct percussion, clavicle, the right sided was dull and the left sided was resonant. On the right side, we had stony dull percussion in the anterior aspect, the lateral in the axillary and the infraaxillary part. And also posteriorly, it was stony dull in the suprascapular, interscapular, infrascapular part. And normal resonant note on the left side. And shifting dullness was absent. Yes, sir.
Have you told about vocal fremitus?
Yes.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I've said, sir. Sir, over
Okay.
here.
Reduce
So
on the
while
right
this-
side.
While describing the dullness, you have to tell in the anterior wall from which space downwards, and the axillary which space downwards, and posteriorly which space downwards.
Sir, it was dull, sir, on the entire anterior aspect, sir.
Whole.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
From infracavicular. What about chronic isthmus? Clavicular?
Sir, clavicular, it was also dull on the right side. The chronic isthmus was
Now,
also dull.
tell me the boundary of chronic isthmus.
Sir, chronic isthmus boundary, sir, it is bounded medially by the sternocleidomastoid muscle. It is bounded laterally by the acromioclavicular joint. It is bounded in anteriorly by the clavicle muscle and posteriorly by the trapezius muscle.
Trapezius. Yes. Okay.
If it is dull, what will indicate?
Sir, apical tuberculosis. It can also be a mass or a
The apex.
apical mass, or it can also be
Yes,
apical
fine.
pneumonia or-
Apical. Very good.
Good, very good.
Dr.
Very good.
Sarkar, up to this, before auscultation, your comment? Hello? Supriya Das, Dr. Sarkar? Hello, disconnected হয়ে গেল নাকি?
Disconnected with the wedge. So, up to that level, I think your history and the clinical findings are matching, because it has become a very straight cut way of presentation.
Ankon,
One thing,
Ankon.
sir.
So, what
to
are
the
the
previous
types of dullness you can come across?
Sir,
Ankon?
a stony dull and
You
a
have
woody
written
dull.
the stony dullness.
Yes, sir.
And
What
what
do
are
you
the
mean by
types of
stony?
dullness?
So stony dullness means, sir, the percussive finger is is actually dealing with certain amount of resistance, and
Very good,
hence
very good.
it
Very
is known
good.
as stony dull.
Okay.
Yes.
But
So you
the-
are getting the dullness, and at the same time, when this fleximeter finger is percussing over the flexor, you are getting also some amount of resistance. So that is your stony dullness.
Yes, sir.
Then what do you mean by woody dullness?
So it is usually present in consolidation. The resistance is not present as
Not
is
like-
in case of stony dullness.
Fine. So throughout the entire hemithorax is involved as
Yes,
per
sir.
your statement.
Yes,
So
sir.
do you think that it is you have written that it is a pleural effusion. So what type of pleural effusion? Is it a mild pleural effusion, moderate pleural effusion, or a massive pleural
A
effusion?
massive pleural effusion, sir.
So when you call it massive pleural effusion,
So when the
what
entire
should-
hemithorax is involved, or if there is more than 1 ml or 1 liter,
not 1 liter,
500,
1.5 liter.
1.5 is massive. pleural effusion.
1.5 is massive.
Massive.
500 to 1000 is your
Is
moderate,
moderate.
and less than 500, which is actually detected most of the time by
By
USG,
USG.
that is your mild.
Yes, sir.
So this is the thing.
What is the
Anko-
minimum amount? It can
Professor
be
Sarkar,
detected?
Professor Sarkar,
Not disconnected. এ কৌশিক এর ফোন করো তো সুপ্রিয়দাকে।
সুপ্রিয় স্যার
Okay.
ডিসকানেক্ট হয়ে গেছেন, আবার জয়েন করছেন এখন।
আচ্ছা,
আচ্ছা,
অঙ্কন,
ঠিক আছে।
how
Can I
you
ask
can?
something?
Yes,
Arkan,
yes.
Arkan,
Yes, sir.
one thing, whether there is a need of tidal percussion here and succession flash, and thing for any evidence of fluid with air. For example,
Yes, sir.
succession flash, tidal
Shifting
percussion
dullness.
and shifting
Yes, sir.
dullness. Three
Shifting
things.
dullness.
Sir, regarding the first question, sir, about tidal percussion, so usually we do tidal percussion when there is minimal amount of pleural effusion present. Suppose in the basal mild pleural effusion. So since the entire hemithorax is involved, sir, tidal percussion is not required in this case. Sir, regarding the coin percussion or shifting dullness, sir, we will do.
Ankon,
Yes, sir.
how will demonstrate the tidal percussion?
Sir, tidal percussion, we will ask the patient to sit in the bed, and then on deep expiration, we will percuss the basal aspect of the lung,
Back.
And
You will.
back.
I will discuss the back
Back.
towards scapular line.
scapula, and then, sir, I'll ask the patient to take a deep breath, and then again I'll percuss, and I'll see that the resonance has increased 1 level up. So,
Okay.
so
So
this
what is the significance? In which disease this is
Sir,
important?
sir,
Sir,
in
may I intervene, sir?
Yes, yes, yes. Dr. Das.
Sir, if it is a tidal percussion, should we really go for deep inspiration or normal inspiration?
Full inspiration and full expiration.
Then why
Full
do you say-
inspiration, yes.
why-
There is
why
a
do you say
difference.
that?
The difference should be either 1 space or 5 centimeters.
Then why do you say tidal percussion, sir, if it is deep inspiration?
No, because the diaphragm lungs expand in the deep inspection up to 5 centimeter, or diaphragm descend up to 5 centimeter. Because if there is the emphysema, lungs expansibility is lost. That is, the elasticity is lost. So in emphysema, there will be no change. Virtually, there will be no change because lung cannot expand. The elasticity lost. And phrenic nerve palsy, there will be paradoxical changes. Rather than in descent, it will ascend up. This is the two significance of tidal percussion. Okay.
Yes, sir.
How will do
Yes.
the shifting dullness? What is the method of demonstrating shifting dullness?
So shifting dullness at first.
Supriyoda joined. Supriyoda.
Yes,
Supriyoda.
yes, yes.
Okay.
So,
Regarding tidal percussion, my opinion, it is a crude method. So during normal, ideally it should be normal breathing, but this normal breathing, the defense will not be elicited. So it should be deep, full inspiration and full expiration is the preferable thing.
So
Yes, it is to describe the difference whether the pathology is supradiaphragmatic or infradiaphragmatic. So if it is infradiaphragmatic, there will be change, and supradiaphragmatic there will not be change.
Okay. And I asked, how to the method of showing the
Yes, sir.
shifting dullness?
Yes, sir. Sir, regarding shifting dullness, sir, with the patient in sitting posture, we will first, yes, since in hydropneumothorax there's a definite air fluid level. So the
No,
air,
you forget the cause. You may tell me
yes,
the
sir. So,
description.
sir, so I will start percussing from the anterior part of the chest wall, and then when I see a definite gap in or definite level in between a tympanitic note and a dull note, I will then ask the patient to lie in a supine posture, and then the fluid will gravitate downwards, and then again I will start percussing over the entire.
No, I think the description not proper. Dr. Sarkar, will you demonstrate
Yeah.
or I tell?
I can
tell.
tell
Yes, you
This
tell.
is-
You tell. You tell.
ideally that should be done in the mid axillary.
Yes, yes.
Mid axillary line, and when you get the dullness, you go lower part below, whether the dullness is still persisting, and then place your finger over the upper border of the dullness,
Yes.
and ask the patient to be on the left lateral decubitus. Wait for 3 breathing or 30
Yes.
seconds, and after that you percuss it, and you will get the tympanitic note or resonant note. And so it indicates that fluid has been replaced by air. And then keeping the finger over that area, again ask the patient
back.
to sit, and then again percuss, and you have to show that there is dullness. And
Yes.
that indicates that air has been replaced by the fluid.
Blood
And
fluid.
that can be done in the anteriorly and also the scapular line. But this is the classically the preferable is the mid axillary line.
This is very important. Every student should practice this in the clinics or in OPD or whatever may be the word. The method of shifting dullness. Then
And another thing is that the shifting dullness may be immediate or delayed. Immediate, what I am telling is that immediate shifting dullness. So immediate shifting dullness cannot be found in pleural effusion, pure pleural effusion.
yes, yes.
But if it is a delayed, you can perform this over time, then shifting dullness may be found in case of pleural effusion. And if we can demonstrate shifting dullness in pleural effusion, it indicates 2 things. Number 1, it is a free fluid, and number 2, the underlying lung is healthy, so prognosis is better. But classically, the shifting dullness found is hydropneumothorax.
Yes.
Yeah, hydropneumothorax, because of the air, presence of the air, it will be first. But in patients without pneumo, the shifting will be very slow, because as such the pleural space is with negative pressure. Fine, Ankan?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So the very important, you don't expect like abdomen to fluid shift very first. It's very slow, but you must practice, and you must see for the succussion splash, especially to rule out hydropneumothorax.
Whenever you are seeing evidence of fluid, always rule out presence of pneumo also.
So what are the signs of hydropneumothorax? Please tell me.
signs of hydropneumothorax, sir, we will get evidence of air fluid level in the sense that there will be a tympanitic loop
One
followed
is
by
shifting dullness, number two suction plus.
succussion.
Any other thing?
Sir, there will be amphoric breath sound, sir.
At the level.
If there is associated bronchopleural fistula,
That indicates bronchopleural fistula.
and sir,
Any other thing?
the coin
Any other
percussion,
thing?
the coin percussion can
It
sometimes
is
be present.
tension pneumothorax. Coin percussion is for tension
Point for
pneumothorax.
the tension pneumonia.
Yes,
And
sir, and also
Horizontal
sir,
upper
horizontal
border.
level of fluid, sir.
horizontal level of fluid, and that can be demonstrated only in sitting position.
Position.
Yes.
Because we percuss in the three line, mid clavicular, mid axillary, and scapular line. Usually in pleural effusion, axillary level will get dullness more in the axillary level, less in the mid clavicular or scapular line. But here in all three line, we will get a horizontal or the same level of dullness. That is the difference.
It's not that classically you'll get the highest point in the axilla. You'll get it horizontal because of the
Here
air.
we will get the horizontal.
Because the air, the fluid will take a level, and that level you have to detect in the different lines: mid clavicular, mid axillary, and mid scapular.
Yes. Now, Ankon, can you tell me the method of mediastinal percussion? Another very important clinical method. After that, Dr. Dijen Das will demonstrate few video, but here we are discussing something mediastinal percussion. Or Dr. Supriya Sarkar, can you describe to the students correct method of mediastinal percussion?
There is actually no method written, and what we are practicing is that direct percussion over the manubrium sterni and the body of the sterni. Manubrium will be resonant, and the body of the sternum will be dull, normal condition. And that should be a direct percussion over there.
So,
obliteration of that or mediastinal. What are the indications? What are the implications of alteration of mediastinal dullness? Percussion.
Suppose second space. Classically we percuss the second space. So what exactly we see there? And if you see the posteriorly also the interscapular areas, we see upper and lower interscapular areas. So what we see there, that is very important in the middle part, anteriorly, upper part, lower part, and also the different spaces besides. What do you look for?
So to delineate the borders of
Borders in the mediastinum.
no, sir. No, I'm not.
Jayanta, you tell.
Yeah, you say, you just tell me the right border of the heart. That's not in the mediastinum. Suppose you see a classical chest X-ray, you can know. Heart is a structure of the middle mediastinum, isn't it?
Yes.
But if you see the right side, if you see the left side, there are classical structures. They form the cardiac borders, and if there are pathology associated, you are able to focus that, isn't it?
Yes, yes, sir.
So what are the structures that form the right border of the heart?
So the right border of the heart is formed from above downwards, sir. Sometimes by the superior vena cava, and sometimes the ascending arch of the aorta does take some part in it, and also by the outer border of the right atrium. Sometimes the inferior vena cava may be visible.
Yes.
And regarding the
yes.
Yeah. Then
Good.
Yeah. Then
yes, sir. Sir, and regarding the left border from above downwards, sir.
so what do you see? Left, you tell? Yeah.
So we see a aortic knuckle which forms the convexity. The
Very
pulmonary trunk or the left pulmonary artery, which is a straight line or a concavity, which we also known as pulmonary base, sir.
Very good.
We have the left atrial appendages. These are the short straight portion that we have, and
Very
the
good.
outer border of the left ventricle, which is the convexity in the lower part.
Very good.
Very good.
Good.
Very good.
Very
So
good.
now you tell when you are percussing the mediastinum, what are the pathological findings you can get? Suppose you get a dullness in the second space. That's commonly we see the second space when you see the evidence of pericardial effusion or see the evidence of some pathology, some hypertrophy of the organ or some abnormal vasculature. So what are the interpretation? What are the findings? And what are, suppose you get the second space dull. What is the interpretation in mediastinal percussion?
I don't know.
Dull means there is something. Dull
Janti,
means
you tell.
Maybe
second space should be a resonant, but if it is dull, means there is something. It may be tumor.
Interthoracic lesions, sir, can be present.
It can be mediastinal mass. It can due to
Yeah,
tuberculosis,
this is-
lymphoma.
Just apply your common sense. What are the things there? You can have a superior mediastinal syndrome also presents
Yes,
like
sir.
that. Any mass in that area, any lymph nodes in this area, any type of this huge ascending aorta which has occupied the right side of the heart, that can also sometimes produce your dullness.
Or a
So
large
lymph
thigh
nodes-
mass. Or enlarged
large
thigh
thigh
mass.
mass. Yes, large thigh mass.
Okay.
The gross amount of the retrosternal
Or,
goiter which is expanded.
Retrosternal thyroid.
So
Okay.
these are the things we can think of. Now,
So
I-
mediastinal cartilage. Yes.
yeah, so
Mediastinal
the mediastinal percussion is, I think, Dr. Dijen will definitely show us regarding
Show
this
us.
thing. He will mention
Yeah,
about
they-
this thing.
Dijanda is connected or connected?
Dijendra will show the clinical methods.
Yeah, you
Ankon,
surface.
Yes, sir.
next very important question, the landmark. What
Yeah,
are the position of the oblique feature? What are the position of the horizontal feature?
Yeah,
Surface anatomy of
very
the.
important. Yeah.
Sir, there are two things, sir. There are two fissures, sir. One is an oblique fissure and the other one is a transverse fissure. So the oblique fissure, it basically starts from the second dorsal spine posteriorly, goes downwards, forwards, and medially to the sixth costochondral junction.
No. It T2 in case of cadaver, T3 in case of living, then passes through the medial border of the scapula.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And then
Then-
goes downwards, forwards, and medially to the sixth costochondral junction.
In axilla, first is
Ankon.
Yes, sir.
Ankon, we should not say directly from the spine. Actually, it should be 2.5 centimeter lateral to the spine.
Lateral to okay. Sir.
Yes. So then along the medial border of the scapula, then in the mid axillary line, it cuts the fifth intercostal phase.
Yes.
Then in the mid clavicle line comes to the sixth phase. Okay.
Yes, sir. And transverse fissure, sir, it starts from the right fourth costochondral
Very
junction
good.
and proceeds transversely up to the mid axillary line and joins the oblique fissure.
Very good. So from T2 medial border, axillary fifth space, then coming to the sixth space, and here fourth space to onward. Very good.
So I'll make the last question of this drop space, which is very important in the left-sided pleural effusion and splenomegaly. So that let us finish. Can you just tell the three lines for the drop space?
So drop space, sir, it is bounded laterally by the left mid-axillary line, below
Good.
by the left lower costal margin, and above by the sixth rib or the left dome of the diaphragm, sir.
What if you percuss? What are the interpretation?
Sir,
Interpretation
loss
of the
of
drop
resonance.
space. Suppose the drop space is basically a resonant. So if you
It is
find
true.
that there is some
Yes, sir.
dullness in the drop space, what are the things which will strike your mind?
So physiologically can occur in a full stomach. Pathologically, a left-sided pleural effusion, a carcinoma of the fundus of the stomach, massive splenomegaly can also be a cause. And also, sir, if there is enlargement of the left lobe of the liver, we can also find loss of tympanicity in the drop space.
Good.
Very good.
Very good.
Now, Dr.
Another
Sarkar,
important thing is that we are suspecting that it may be left-sided pleural effusion, and if you get tympanitic cross space, then you think twice before telling your diagnosis that it is the left-sided pleural effusion. Okay, continue.
Yes, sir.
continue.
Sir, regarding auscultation, sir, again, sir, the entire anterior part of the chest, right side and laterally and posteriorly, we had absent vesicular breath sound, and there was normal vesicular breath sound on the left side.
What abnormal sound you are expecting in case of pleural effusion? Breath sound absent is okay. Your sound,
Ankon, you are muted. You
Sir, above the level of pleural effusion, I can expect a bronchial breath sound and egophony.
what is the significance of that?
Sir,
Get that?
sir, we get it because, sir, in pleural effusion, the lungs are compressed there's a compression collapse, and we know that a compressive lung is a good transmitter of sound.
Compressive collapse, that is a term like compressive collapse.
So because of the compressed lungs, it is a good conductor of sound, so hence we get bronchial breath sound.
Actually, when you get the egophony,
can you get egophony?
Yes, sir. Sir,
Yes.
we can get
Because-
egophony, bronchial breath sound over the level of pleural effusion.
Egophony means this bronchial breath sound. The primary requisite for the egophony must be a bronchial breath sound.
Yes, sir.
When there is a bronchial breath sound, then and then only you can expect an egophony. That is with a nasal bleating. That
Yes.
is your egophony.
Sir,
The filtering out of the lower frequency sounds.
Yes,
That is
sir,
the most important
the
thing.
nasal intonation like bleating
Yes,
of a goat.
Yes. Then you can, when there is a bronchial breath sound, you can also expect the whispering petrol liquid.
Spectraloquy,
Without
yes.
bronchial breath sound, you cannot expect the whispering breath sound. First of all, there should be bronchial breath sound and the bronchus must be present. That is the most important thing. So at the above the level, what is, can you tell us what is Kodak resonance?
So Kodiak resonance is the above the level of pleural effusion, we usually get Kodiak resonance.
Right. There is a band of resonance, which in a horizontal level, above the level of the pleural effusion. So you can get in case of this type. But in your case, you will not get it because it is a massive pleural effusion. It is already crossed above the level of clavicle.
Sir, cardiac resonance, sir, at the level you have to focus and you get hyporesonant node with some that is typical described as boxy quality. Hyporesonant, yes, sir.
Right, right.
Sir, Ankan, one thing, this is a case of, we are suspecting case of massive pleural effusion. So what we expect to the lungs? Where the lungs will be, lung mass will be now will be placed at which place? Lung will be compressed at which angle? Am I audible, Ankan?
You are audible, but your question is not very much, I think, palatable to Ankan. What you actually want to mean, you just describe. There is a massive effusion.
Yeah, there is a massive pleural effusion. There is one question: what extra or added sound? That means bronchial breathing will hurt. He answered that you'll get a bronchial breathing. So in this case, there is chance of getting bronchial breathing where? At the level means what?
Sir, at the upper level of fluid, sir.
How will get at the upper level of the fluid? Now there is a compression of the lung, whole volume of the lung, because it is surrounded by heavy amount of fluid. So the lungs will be compressed towards the hilum.
Yes.
So
in this case, I think you cannot expect to get it. It's very difficult to find.
Yes.
It is usually in moderate or mild case of
mild to moderate.
Yes,
when the fluid is around 1000 to 1200, 1000 to 1200, then you can expect to get in the upper level. But in your case, it is very difficult because entire lungs is collapsed, and that is towards the center, towards the hilum.
Yes,
it is very difficult.
Another important thing is that if you get egophony bronchial breath sound, usually it indicates underlying consolidation.
Yes,
right. And that should be kept in mind.
But
very
one thing
message,
here,
very good message, very good message. Underlying consolidation, yes.
Underlying consolidation.
One thing sometimes.
Yes. What
Sir,
are the
one
types
thing
of
sometimes what happens because of this compression, because the lungs will pull toward the hilum. So with the patent bronchus, he can hear sometimes you can hear bronchial breathing all throughout the lung fields. Because if there is a patent bronchus with collapsed lung, you can also get a bronchial breathing throughout the lung fields in some cases.
Yes. Ankan, what are the types of bronchial breath sound?
So types of bronchial breath sound are tubular, cavernous, and amphoric. Tubular is a tubular is a high-pitched bronchial breath sound classically found in consolidation or collapse of lung with patent bronchus. Cavernous is a low-pitched bronchial breath sound. We can get it over tuberculous cavity.
Yes.
Amphoric,
any cavity, not tuberculous.
Any cavity. Sir, amphoric is also a low-pitched bronchial breath sound, but there are metallic tones and overtones. Like, sir, when we pass sound through an empty bottle of water, we can get it usually bronchopleural fistula.
Or pneumothorax.
or pneumothorax.
Pneumothorax.
Very good.
Very good, very good.
It should be
What
like
is the
that.
bronchovesicular?
So bronchovesicular, sir, it is it is it is a mixture of both the breath sounds, where, sir, the expiration part is mainly of bronchial variety, whereas the inspiratory part is more of vesicular in character. So the classical sites are, so we can get it in the right infraclavicular area because the trachea is in direct contact with the lung. And others, sir, we can also get in consolidation with in the resolution phase.
Yes,
No,
yes.
This is called
Broncho-
harsh vesicular breath sound, and harsh vesicular breath sound is usually found over areas of hyperinflation. Over
Yes.
hyperinflation of the lung compensatory. As in this case, there is right-sided massive pleural effusion, so
Then
left-sided lung
compensated
will
FIC.
have to work more. Then you can get this harsh vesicular breath sound on the right side, left side also. This is another important.
So Professor Pal, Professor
Hmm.
Dr. Jyotirmoy Pal, can we request our Dr. Dijen Das to finish up the demonstration? Then he will enter into.
No, first your auscultation finished or something, some slide is more.
He has got the investigation slide only.
Oh, auscultation finished. So now
so
I
I
request
think-
Dr. Dijen Das.
Yeah.
There is some important clinical methods Dr. Professor Das will demonstrate. Again, we will come to Dr. Ankon with their other slides.
So will I stop sharing, sir?
You
Yes,
stop
sir.
You
sharing.
stop sharing, Ankon. You please
Yes, sir.
stop sharing. Again, we
Yes,
will
sir.
come. Again, we will
Again
ask you. Again, we will
will
ask you.
come.
Good, very good. Professor Dash.
Yes,
Yes,
sir. Good.
yes. You show us those slides.
Ajay, one point, voice of the video is not very good. Dr. Das, you can give the running demonstration.
I
Right.
can just try once. If it is not audible, please let me know.
Okay.
So at the very beginning, the prerequisite before going for the respiratory system examination is a consent or assent of the patient is very important.
Mm.
And we should always examine the patient under good natural light. This is the ideal, though it is not always possible. Another important issue is the proper exposure and positioning of the patient, which is again very essential. Most of the best position to actually demonstrate the respiratory system is standing, but it is not always possible. So we may make the patient sit. And if it is also not possible, then the final definitely, if the patient is supine, bedridden patient will have to still examine the patient. And if the patient is a lady or a patient is a male, I'll talk on, we should always try to keep one attendant during examination. With the counterpart, like if the female patient, we should try to keep a female attendant, and for male patient, at least there should be one attendant. And we should also use a curtain before exposure, because to maintain the dignity of the patient. These are very essential. Now, in relation with this case, there may be chances of mediastinal shift. So sometimes there may be a prominency of the sternocleidomastoid in one side, the side where that mediastinum has been deviated to. So this is what is a picture I'm showing where the right sternocleidomastoid is prominent. This is known as sternocleidomastoid sign or trill sign, which indicate that the mediastinum and actually the trachea has been deviated towards right. Now, I'm just showing, because this is commonly asked during PG examination or undergraduate examination, how to see the position of the trachea. So we'll be describing you how the sound audible, sir. Sound is audible, sir.
Yes, audible.
Okay. Yeah, in clinical examination, because this is very important part in examination of respiratory system. Now, the position of the trachea can be seen even if the patient is supine, but in that case, we have to make the patient move straighter. Preferably, we remove the pillow underneath that, and the patient should be straight, normal anatomical position. In sitting posture, there are a few methods that you can follow. So, preferably, we will use these 3 fingers to see the position of the trachea. What we will do is we find out the sternocleidomastoid muscle. There are 2 heads of the sternocleidomastoid muscle. One head is there in the sternal and the sternal head of the sternocleidomastoid. So we'll keep 2 fingers, index finger and the ring finger, in the 2 sternal head of the sternocleidomastoid. And with the help of this middle finger, we'll try to feel the tracheal ring.
So if we are getting the tracheal ring well, then it's sufficient enough, but sometimes it may not be possible. Then you may have to ask the patient to swallow also. And once you are getting the tracheal ring, then you see the distance between these two fingers on both the sides. This should be both the side, the angulation will be almost same in case of midline trachea. Now, if the trachea is suppose the position is here, then this angulation will be more than the other side angle. Again, to reconfirm, we will try to insinuate the finger between the sternocleidomastoid and the trachea, and other side also we will try to insinuate between the sternocleidomastoid and the trachea. The side where it is easily insinuable, whereas in the other side, if it is feeling difficulty, that means the side where it is easy to insinuate the finger, the trachea has been deviated to the opposite side. So this is one method by which we can see the position of the trachea. In clinical method of Macleod, they have also mentioned that we can also use the single finger, like index finger can be only used to see the position of the trachea, where we can simply slide into the suprasternal fossa and we can feel the tracheal ring, whether it is the midline or it is deviated to any side. Then again we try to insinuate the finger between the sternocleidomastoid and the trachea, and by looking at the possibility of insinuation, means if it is easily insinuable in this side, then the trachea should be deviated to the other side. So this is a simple method.
Now, this is little bit about the tracheal tug. Before I comment on that, actually patient is not a patient. So this is my ward boy, and I have taken proper consent before examination that I will be showing it to you.
Again, sometimes we can see that there is tracheal tug. The tracheal tug means the up and down movement of the trachea. Sometimes it's visible only during inspection, you can see itself. This tracheal tug can be again of two varieties. It may be the trachea may move down and up with each systole and diastole of the heart. So that is what is known as Oliver sign. Now that is possible if you are getting the arch of aorta is lying over the bifurcation of the trachea to over the left major bronchus. Now if there is aneurysm in the arch of the aorta, then each systole the trachea may be going down. And there is another situation like in COPD, mostly in the emphysematous lung, where that is not much of lateral expansion of the lung is seen. The only movement that occurs is for the diaphragmatic excursion. So in that case, with each inspiration and expiration, we can also see the trachea is coming down and up. So how these both are the tracheal tug. Now sometimes this may not be visible, so you may have to feel and palpate. How you see? You make the patient, the chin should be little upward, and then you hold the trachea between your index finger and the thumb, and with you'll have to see the movement, whether it has got correlation with the systole or diastole or with respiration.
And in this position, we'll try to keep a little upward thrust during examination of the position of the tracheal tug.
Again, sometimes.
Now, this is the method that I'm going to show how to see the movement of the chest by manual method. So how to see the expansion of the chest.
Once you have to see whether the expansion of the chest or the movement of the chest is bilaterally symmetrical or not. You can see it by manual examination. So for that, you have to see in all aspects of the chest, from anterior aspect in the supramedullary area, medullary area, inframedullary area. You have to see the apical area. You have to also see at the back also. I'm just showing in anterior aspect how you see the expansion of the movement of the chest, whether it is bilaterally symmetrical or whether there is a restriction of movement in the chest. What you do is, you will have to keep your hands like this. I prefer to use the spreaded finger rather than like this finger, because you are keeping more spreaded finger, you are occupying more lung volume. Say suppose I will start like upper part of the chest. Now what will you do is, I will keep my two thumbs nearing but not oppose with the skin. If I want to keep the thumb opposing the skin, then I have to take the fold of skin in between. I prefer to keep the thumb without opposing to the skin, and then ask the person to take deep breath. Lamba lamba shas now. Now we can see the movement of the thumb. This bilateral part of the thumb are moving well. So there is no restriction of the movement. Same way, we'll have to see in the middle part of the chest or the memory area. So here also if you see, there is no restriction of the movement. Same way I'll see in the lower chest. Lamba shas. So you can see that the both side of my thumb is moving well without any.
Should I continue, sir?
Yes, yes.
So then little bit about the percussion at the chest.
Now, during the percussion of the chest, now if you want to percuss in the anterior aspect of the chest, now what are the things that you should know? There are certain plans where we will percuss. One is known as the mid-clavicular plan that drops vertically in the midpoint between the middle of the suprasternal fossa and the tip of the acromion process. The line which drops vertically down, this is what is the mid-clavicular plan. And there is anterior axillary plan, mid-axillary plan, posterior axillary plan, and the scapular line, and also there is the interscapular line. So, or interscapular space. Now these are the different areas that will have to percuss the chest, and positioning of the patient is also very important. For better exposure, you make the patient to sit in the anterior aspect of the chest. You see like make the patient in this position, and we should also know the anatomical landmark of the lung, because the lung lies behind the medial one part of the clavicle. Behind the lateral two part of the clavicle, in the apical part, there is no more lung tissue. So we have to percuss over the clavicle, medial one part of the clavicle. Either you can give a single percussion leg on the clavicle, or you can just keep it for fixation. You can give a percussion node leg here, and again you compare the same side in other aspects. Now here during percussion, in the principles of percussion, we say there is a pleximeter finger on which we have to percuss. So we preferably percuss on the middle phalanx. But now even the newer Hutchins, they have said that distal interphalangeal, back of the distal interphalangeal joint can also be used as the pleximeter finger. And the percussion finger should be the middle fingers of the other hand, right? And this should have a good apposition with the skin without any air in between. And this percussion finger should fall on the pleximeter finger perpendicularly, and the force should come from the wrist joint, not from the elbow. Okay? And this we'll have to maintain during the percussion. And we should also try to follow that during percussion.
There's some disturbance. Dr. Das, there is a hang.
Sir, is there any problem, sir?
Video has been closed. Yeah. Video is not streaming. Vijayendra.
Not audible actually.
Internet problem.
ভিডিওটা মুভ করছে না ডিজেন, মুখে বলে দাও।
Is it okay, sir, now?
ভিডিওটা মুভ করছে না।
Video not moving.
Your video is not moving. So what you can do, you can tell. তুমি মুখে বলতে পারো।
I think internet problem from Vijendra's side. His picture also not moving.
Yeah. No, it's not streaming because of the poor connectivity. It's not streaming. So
that is why.
Yeah.
So doctor.
So you can tell whatever you want to speak, you can
No, no.
speak.
He cannot speak now. Problem at his site.
Oh,
You see,
low,
his picture is fixed, na?
yeah, low connectivity.
Acha, Dr. Sarkar, now you make your comment up to this on percussion methods. Anything, any more points to add on percussion?
Percussion one is sir has come.
Yujenda,
Yes, sir. Sorry. Probably
ভিডিওটা চলছে না।
Hi, sir. Internet is
চলছে
the
না।
problem. Internet was the problem, sir.
You have to take Jio.
No, I'm having Jio and I'm having BSNL fiber also, but both are acting like. Now, is it okay?
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, give sound. Yeah.
No sound.
No sound, sir.
No sound,
Yes.
no sound.
No
Vijan, you
sound.
go on describe. You describe.
Describe করে দাও না, মুখে বলে দাও না।
Okay, sir. So now I'm describing the percussion that we do in the axillary area. Now here, the positioning of the patient is again very important because here we'll have to expose the axillary area. So what we will do is we will rotate the patient towards facing you. So it will be easier to see both the side, left side and right side together. And we should keep the patient's arm over the head, and we should not keep the hand raising, otherwise it may be cumbersome for the patient. And then we'll percuss again from the axillary area, maybe axillary, anterior axillary and posterior axillary. Start with the normal side, then we compare with the comparable zone in the other side. Space by space we'll have to see, and then we demarcate where is the the dullness or any change in the note. This is about the axillary region. You have to see in all plan, anterior axillary plan, then mid axillary and posterior axillary. So what I'm showing here, if the patient remains in this position, it may be little cumbersome. Wants to go in the left side and then come to the right side. So if we make the patient sit facing towards the examiner, then it will be little easy. Then I'm showing the percussion of the back. Now, during percussion at the back of the chest, again, the positioning of the patient is important, where we prefer to keep the arm in cross-leg fashion so that the patient will touch the other knee from the right hand, they will cross to the left leg, and it will stoop little forward so that the scapula gets little separated out and will get more space for percussion. In the upper part of the chest, in the supraspinous area, the intercostal spaces are more of horizontal. So in that particular area, we'll percuss horizontally, keeping our pleximeter finger more of horizontal. Once we come down in the below the supraspinous area, the intercostal spaces are little, the obliquely placed, like a fish bone. So I'm showing the supraspinous area where the horizontal percussion. Then once we come below the supraspinous area, in the intercostal, in the interscapular area, we'll take this way of percussion obliquely, which is known as batwing fashion of percussion. So we should, I forgot actually, we should follow from normal first, and then we should go to the abnormal side. So this is the way of percussion in the back. Now, Bhaira sir was probably asking for chronic isthmus. Now, chronic isthmus, how do you percuss for the chronic isthmus? Now, for chronic isthmus, best way is to go to the back of the patient, and because chronic isthmus is a band between the root of the neck and the shoulder girdle. So we'll start percussing, keeping our pleximeter finger in such a way so that it will fall on the lung. So it should be anterior to the trapezius muscle. And then we'll start percussing from the one side, maybe from the root of the neck, where initially we will get a dull note because there is a muscle out here. And gradually we'll come towards the lateral aspect. towards the lung area, where the moment we'll get the lung resonance, we'll mark it out here, the point of the first resonance. Then we'll see whether that resonance is present throughout the rest part. Then again, we'll go from the lateral aspect. Then we'll go, once we'll start the percussion here, initially we may get dull note. Then gradually, once we move medially, then a area will come, we will get the lung resonance, and we'll again mark, and we'll see the homogeneity of the rest part. Normally, this band of resonance is around 5 to 7 centimeter. Now this is, I'm showing from the root of the neck. Now, once we get the resonancy, we'll see homogeneity of the resonancy, whether there is any impairment in between. So we mark from the beginning of the lung resonance, and then we'll restart from the lateral aspect. So initially we may get dull note. Then once we get the lung resonance, then again we'll mark it here, and we see the span of this chronic isthmus. So we should also see the other side also. We should not see only one side, we should see the other side also. So thank you, sir. Thank you. I have actually not demonstrated about the mediastinal percussion here.
You demonstrate mediastinal percussion. Have you video?
No. I don't created that video.
Okay. Next day you will demonstrate very nicely.
Very nice.
Very nice, Professor Das.
Very nice.
And
Very,
this
very
video, with your permission, I will give in the group so
Sure,
that
sir.
PG can see
Yeah.
repeatedly.
We'll utilize for our PGTs. Just
Yes.
Dvijenda, you have to see that the voice comes, and we want that your voice should be heard to all the students across the East, Assam
Thanks.
to Odisha.
Thank you, sir.
Yes,
Thank
yes,
you.
yes.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Dr. Das, for your nice demonstration of the science.
Thank you,
I
sir.
should add 2 or 3 things.
Sure.
Number 1, during percussion, we should look for number 1, sound, that is the note. Number 2, there is tenderness, and number 3, the resistance. And
Yes,
if
sir.
the dull and resistance both are found, then it is called stony dullness. Another important thing, regarding chest percussion, the chest percussion is usually superficial, and the chest percussion superficial, only deep percussion should be done to delineate the borders, the liver dullness or cardiac dullness. Then deep percussion should be done. Otherwise, the chest percussion should be superficial. And if we do deep percussion, then the signs will not be elicited. These 2 points.
sir. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Another thing, sir, it has to be felt. The resonance has to be felt, not to be heard. Most of the
Yes,
time,
sir.
students they hear to the sounds, whether
Yes,
it is resonant or dull. But classically, it has to be felt rather than to be heard.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, so now we'll come to the Dr. Ankon very quickly, your provisional diagnosis and differential diagnosis. Then Professor Supriya Sarkar will demonstrate how to read the XHS in this case. Dr. Ankon, just summarize your provisional diagnosis, summarize your clinical finding and provisional diagnosis.
Sir, in view of stony dullness of the right side while percussion and absent breath sounds, I would like to make a provisional diagnosis of right-sided pleural effusion, cause probably tubercular or malignancy. Sir, since we got a case of right-sided pleural effusion with history of weight loss, we also did a breast examination to see for any lump, but there was no lump in. So shall I go to the investigation part?
Yes. The
One
breast
thing-
examination is a must for female patients.
Yes.
Respiratory examination, and in case of male patients, testicular
Yes,
examination
yes,
is a
yes,
must.
Yes, sir.
Do not forget these 2 things.
So amongst the reports, so we had 8.7 of hemoglobin. The ESR was in the range of 100. All the other reports were normal. We also did a ANA Hep2, which was negative. The serology was also non-reactive. So we then went ahead with the chest X-ray of the patient and found a right-sided homogeneous.
Yes,
Yes.
yes, continue.
Right-sided homogeneous opacity. We can see that the trachea is shifted to the left side. We did a we did a fluid study
Before that,
for.
describe the X-ray. Describe the X-ray first.
So this
Ankon,
Yes, sir.
Ankon, we all students will learn how to read the X-ray chest step by step. So first I am projecting the normal X-ray chest. Dr. Sarkar will describe how to read, then we will go to the pathology.
Sir, I have the right. Sir, will I give the right normal chest?
Yes,
You
yes.
continue. Let him finish first.
Sir, regarding the ideal chest X-ray, sir, first we have to see whether there is proper exposure or not. Regarding the proper exposure, we have to know to see that whether the upper thoracic vertebra should be just barely discernible through the cardio-mediastinal shadow, and also there should be a proper naming and age of the patient as well. When we talk of a chest X-ray, a normal chest X-ray, as we know, sir, should be taken in a full inspiration, except when we are suspecting if there is a small pneumothorax while taken and for a lateral view, the patient's arms are folded and should be extended above the head. And will I continue, sir?
Continue.
Oh, sir, regarding the normal chest X-ray, we should be reading it in the following order. What is the view, whether it is a posterior, anterior, a lateral, or an oblique? We have to see the exposure, the centralization, the skeletal structures, the lung fields, including the blood vessels and the pleura, the cardiovascular silhouette, the mediastinum, including the position of the trachea and the cardiac apex, the diaphragm, and if there is any soft tissue abnormality, and only then should we come to a final diagnosis.
Vascular?
Yes,
normal,
sir.
In normal X-ray, chest X-ray, there
Yes,
are two types of viewing the X-ray. Number one is the global view, and we should not attempt global view because you have to see at least 10,000 X-rays. After that, you can go directly to global view. So it is better to have a systemic view. In the systemic view, there is no clear-cut definition when to start, where to start, but I prefer the extrathoracic part first because they are often missed. And in the extrathoracic part, the subcutaneous tissue, breast, the part of the abdomen that is visible. And after that, the thoracic cage, and go through the ribs and count the ribs from the posterior to anteriorly, and then the mediastinum and the position of the trachea. Before seeing the position of the trachea, the clavicular distance, the medial end of the clavicle should be equidistant from the center. And then the heart, the normal position of the heart is 1/3 to the right and 2/3 to the left. And this is the normal. And the cardiomegaly, you have to say, in the cardiomegaly, that is the 1:2 ratio, the maximum distance from the midline to right border and maximum distance from midline to left border, and that is the cardiac silhouette, and the maximum diameter of the thorax, the inner wall diameter. And when cardiomegaly is present, we have to differentiate between whether it is a cardiomegaly or pericardial effusion. The most important thing, there are many points. The most important thing what we follow is that in the pericardial effusion, there is oligamic lung field, whereas in case of cardiomegaly, true cardiomegaly, there is the plethoric lung field. And after examination of the right border and left border has already been discussed here, and then we have to go for diaphragm. Normally, the right dome of the diaphragm is one space above than the left dome, but maybe both may be in the same level, and cardiophrenic and costophrenic angles we have to look for. And after that, we have to look for the lung parenchyma by zones, the upper, mid, and lower zone upper, and that is the line drawn from the anterior border of the second rib lower border and the anterior end of the lower border of the fourth rib. There are two lines, and that can differentiate between the upper zone, mid zone, and lower zone. You compare upper zone from the one side with the other, and thereby. And lastly, the most difficult part is the high lung. Again, the left hilum is higher and right hilum is one space below. It is very difficult to look for the hilum, but one thing you should remember that the lateral border of the hilum should be concave. If it is convex, then it is abnormal. And when in examination a normal X-ray is given, sometimes some misanthropist examiner may give you normal X-ray that will puzzle you, but apparently normal X-ray, we should look for a small pneumothorax and the hidden areas of the lung, that is the apical part where the clavicle, the first ribs, second ribs, they comes, then the behind the heart and behind the diaphragm. You should remember that the behind the dome of the diaphragm, the posterior, the lower lobe of the lung, most of the lower lobe of the lung is in the behind the dome of the diaphragm. We have to look for those things before saying that it is a normal X-ray. Please continue.
Yes.
Yes,
So
sir.
come to the next pathological lung. X-ray of the pathological lung, previous X-ray. Pleural effusion X-ray. X-ray of the pleural effusion. Yes.
Now we
Dr.
describe
Sarkar,
it.
please. Yes.
I have to describe.
Yes. You teach.
Sir, your face is not visible, sir.
Huh?
Your face is not visible. You are
Only
not visible.
forehead. Only forehead is visible.
Okay.
Only brain is visible.
Now, I cannot see me actually.
It's okay. It's okay now.
So here we have to describe it is that the right there is homogeneous opacity covering the whole right hemithorax with shifting of the mediastinum, both trachea and the heart to the left, and there is obliteration of the cardiophonic and costophonic angles. So it is right-sided massive effusion, but I prefer it that never use adjective or adverb before describing unless you can qualify it. When you tell that it is a massive pleural effusion, then they will ask what is massive effusion, what is moderate effusion. Then so it is better to say that it is the right-sided pleural effusion with shifting of mediastinum to the opposite side. Then
Nice.
Yes. Nice. Next. Pleural thickening. Another DD.
So here, basically, we can divide the lung diseases into two. The diseases with mediastinum shifting to the opposite side, that is pleural effusion, pneumothorax, hydropneumothorax, and where the mediastinum is shifted to the same side. That means it may be fibrosis, the parenchymal fibrosis or pleural fibrosis or the lung collapse. Here you can see that the mediastinum, both trachea and the heart shadow are shifted to the left. And there are some opacities, and opacities are heterogeneous. And we can clearly visible that the left dome of the diaphragm is pushed upwards. So there is volume loss. One thing is clear that there is volume loss in the left side. And whether this volume loss is due to collapse, in collapse, the opacity will be homogeneous. But here it is heterogeneous opacity, and there is no evidence of gross thoracic cage deformity. So it is more goes in favor of parenchymal lung fibrosis than pleural lung fibrosis. So the differentiating parenchymal lung fibrosis and pleural fibrosis is that in parenchymal lung fibrosis, the mediastinum diaphragm will be shifted to the same side. But in case of pleural fibrosis, there will be more chest wall deformity with scoliosis, with rib crowding, etc. But most of the cases, the pleural and parenchymal fibrosis, there is a mixture. But it is predominantly parenchymal lung fibrosis.
Okay. Next X-ray.
Yes, sir.
Ankon.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Again here, you can see there is a volume loss on the left side, but the opacities are of a different occasion, that the left dome is raised, number one. And number two, there is no chest wall deformity here also. And there is some homogeneous opacity in the lower part. But it doesn't look like the left lower lobe collapse. Left lower lobe collapse is a triangular shadow behind the heart, and left whole lung collapse is the homogeneous opacity throughout, and it is not the left upper lobe collapse. So probably there is some parenchymal fibrosis along with some areas of consolidation. Just so this case, it has been written that left-sided huge consolidation, but there is shifting of the mediastinum to the opposite side. In consolidation, mediastinum will not be shifted. So
Yes.
so
Yes,
it
yes.
is a massive pleural effusion of the left side.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Very good. Any more X-ray?
No, sir. This.
So now we are coming to back to your investigation.
So this was the.
Yeah, sir. Can that be? Can that be, sir? It may be due to consolidation with syndromic effusion.
That may be, but the X-ray is of pleural effusion. There may be associated consolidation. The primary pathology is effusion.
Okay, sir.
So this was the pleural fluid report. Coagulum was present, blood was present, sugar was 58, protein was 4.2, albumin 3.4, LDH was 370.9, cell count of 850 per cubic millimeter with a lymphocyte predominant picture, 85% lymphocyte and 15% polymorphonuclear cells. And an ADA of 74.4 units per liter. So having said this, we also sent for a sputum for AFB and sputum for CVNAT, which was negative. And we made a diagnosis of clinically diagnosed as a case of right-sided pleural effusion or extrapulmonary tuberculosis regimen. But however, we plan to repeat a chest X-ray 2 weeks later to see for resolution and clinical well-being of the patient.
Now, how you diagnose this case as a tubercular pleural effusion?
Sir, sir, in the face of exudative effusion with lymphocytic predominant picture, and
there is any ratio between lymphocyte and neutrophil? Lymphocyte
yes,
neutrophil ratio more than 75%.
75%, sir.
Yes.
0.75 ratio. And sir, along with an ADA of more than 60, which is very specific, and in the face of a
No, Ankon, ADA is not specific for only for tuberculosis. Any disease that involves the lymphocyte, ADA can be increased.
Yes,
so ADA is not the synonymous with.
What are the other conditions in which ADA can be raised?
Sir, empyema, sir, even sir.
Pneumonic effusion, empyema, and another is rheumatoid.
So rheumatoid,
rheumatoid.
And brucellosis, and also they also can cause increased ADA.
Yes, so ADA is not suggestive, not confirmatory of tubercular diagnosis of tubercular effusion. So we usually diagnose tubercular pleural effusion. Number 1, the clinical setting. Number 2, lymphocytic exudative, high ADA, and excluding other causes. That is very important. Clinically, we have to exclude other cause, and then we can say that it is clinically diagnosed tuberculosis. But my next question is how to confirm the diagnosis.
How to confirm?
The tissue biopsy remains the gold standard.
CVNAT is negative. CVNAT is negative.
Negative. Yes.
They have done sputum only, but have not done.
No, sir. So we have not done pleural fluid CVNAT. Sir.
Yes, that should have been done.
Yes.
Pleural fluid CVNAT is very important. Though
very important.
Sensitivity from the effusion only 40 to 45%.
Less than 50%, sir.
Still, you have to do the repeated CVNAT.
Yes, sir.
Because
important.
if CBNAT is positive, then it will confirm your diagnosis.
Yes, sir.
But if it is negative, in
Negative,
that case,
then
how will
then what
proceed?
will do?
Further, what will be the further step?
Sir, we can then, sir, probably repeat a chest X-ray 2 to 3 weeks later. And if we see that there is, but sir, the gold standard will obviously be, sir, a tissue diagnosis will be the gold standard for diagnosis of
Yes.
tuberculosis.
What is the plural biopsy
Plural
yield?
biopsy.
Plural
Plural
biopsy.
biopsy yield, how much? What is the percentage of plural biopsy? The maximum yield will have to be with the plural biopsy. You can, in the tune of about 50 to 60% you can get. Am I right, Supriyo?
Yes, sir. That
So
depends
that
on
is
the
the most
process.
important. For confirmation, you have to go for the tissue.
Tissue.
And if you have your CBNet positive, then your diagnosis would have been in the almost confirmed. But presumptive diagnosis in our country in tuberculosis and response to therapy and the chest X-ray later on and the sense of well-being and clinical resolutions of the symptomatology. These may be considered, but final diagnosis and everything in the beginning, if you do not get all these things, will depend on the tissue diagnosis.
Yes.
Like your
Yes, sir.
plural biopsy.
Thoracoscopic guided tissue biopsy would have been better.
Very rarely it is done. Thoracoscopic diagnosis is also one of the modalities,
Sure.
but I think it is not practiced everywhere. But in examination,
If
they
the
can
facilities are available, then thoracoscopic plural biopsy will be
probably,
preferable.
yeah.
If that is not available, then blunt plural biopsy. And the biopsy material should be sent, half of them through the formalin for histopathological examination. Remember that caseous necrosis doesn't confirm your diagnosis.
Yes.
So half of the sample should be sent with normal saline for CBNAT and culture. And
Yes.
the yield of CBNAT in solid tissue is more than that of the liquid.
Excellent.
Excellent.
Sir,
excellent.
another thing, most of the time you may not get because it occurs due to hypersensitivity reaction to tuberculin proteins. So,
right.
Yes, they may not get a biopsy confirmatory regarding tuberculosis because most of the times it will get as a hypersensitivity reaction to tuberculosis proteins. So, Ankan, one thing, whether we'll search for other hypersensitive markers of tuberculosis, extrapulmonary sites. For example, skin. Have you searched for that?
Yes, sir. There was no evidence of flictanular conjunctivitis in the eye or erythema nodosum. Sir, we did search, so there was no evidence for it.
Tuberculosis,
no, sir,
iris nodules?
No, sir, there was no.
Erythema nodosum, nothing there. So you have to see all those things. Even
yes, sir.
lupus vulgaris, skin tuberculosis.
Yes,
okay, lymph nodes.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Mantoux, what about Mantoux test?
No, sir, we did not do Mantoux.
No.
What is the importance
If it
of
is
Mantoux test?
negative, if it is negative, then it excludes tuberculosis or not?
Sir, if it is negative, no, sir, it does not exclude tuberculosis.
It doesn't exclude.
Yes, sir.
In which condition?
Sir, in which?
Dr. Sarkar, my question to you, explain to the student, for the rapid diagnosis of the resistance, drug resistance, we use two methods. One is CBNAT, one is line probe assay. So what is the difference between these two?
Now, CBNAT can be done from any clinical material.
Specimen.
That is the except blood, urine stool. But in case of line probe assay, the CBNAT has the two diagnosis. One is the confirmation of tuberculosis. Number two, the diagnosis of rifampicin resistance. That two can be done with the CBNAT. LPA can only be done through a positive samples. That is after culture, if there is a growth or the clinical material shows that is AB positive, then we can go some clinical material to LPA. And through LPA, the first line and second line. In first line, we can see the resistance to INH and rifampicin. In the second line, we can have the fluoroquinolones and injectables. And so there can be done. But
yes.
The first test that is available in the medical colleges are the CBNAT, but the LPA needs the higher, more sophisticated the research, and it should be in the journal area. The LPA is available.
Yes.
So,
yes. Thank
Dr.
you.
Ankan. Dr.
Yes,
Ankan.
sir. Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
for the sake of discussion, as a postgraduate students are also here, so can you name some situation where there will be exudative pleural effusion with very low sugar level, less than 30 milligram per DL?
So connective tissue diseases and rheumatoid arthritis, malignancy, tuberculosis can be present.
Tuberculosis is not taken.
Not very low, sir, but malignancy and rheumatoid arthritis can present.
Malignancy with high tumor burden.
Yes, sir.
Rheumatoid pleurisy and empyema, definitely.
Empyema, yes.
They engulf the glucose more.
Yeah. Can you name some situation where you may get hemorrhagic fluid, because this was little hemorrhagic?
Yes, sir. Sir, malignancy, sir, tuberculosis, if we can have lymphoma, leukemias, and also, sir, traumatic tap can also cause hemorrhagic pleural effusion.
SLE.
SLE.
SLE is very important, particularly in female patient.
Coagulation disorder patient.
Yes.
These are present on anticoagulant therapy, traumatic injury.
Bleeding the HCC.
Suppose
Professor Pal, Professor Pal, we have discussed a lot. I think we have come to the end.
End. Yes. So, one or two questions. What is the backtake method? Why backtake method can be detections can be so early? Professor Ganguly, in backtake method, we use the palmitic acid that is consumed by the Mycobacterium tuberculosis, and that is a radioactive carbon. So when the metabolism start, if there is bacteria, live bacilli in the specimen, so they will take up the radioactive carbon, palmitic acid with the radioactive carbon. So carbon dioxide will be liberated from the metabolism, and that carbon dioxide have the radioactive carbon. So that will be very quickly detected by the radio tracer. So actually, backtake method detect the metabolism. Once the metabolism started, they quickly detect. That is why we get the so early result. Professor Satyabodha Ganguly has raised hand. Professor Ganguly, please. Hey Kaushik, hey unmute kore dao Professor Ganguly ke. Hello.
Between that, nowadays we do not go for backtake because of the problem of radioactive substances. We are going for Mycobacterium growth indicator tube that indicates that the occupant oxygen is liberated. There is a color change at the bottom of the tube. So nowadays we are using Mycobacterium growth indicator tube instead of this backtake.
Ankon, someone has asked about the Leitz criteria. Already you have mentioned. Can you just tell in 2 words Leitz criteria?
Sir, if pleural fluid protein by serum protein is more than 0.5, if pleural fluid LDH divided by the serum protein LDH is more than 0.6, or if the pleural fluid protein is more than is 2/3 the upper limit of normal of the serum LDH, if any one of these are present, then it is an exudative pleural effusion.
Good. Very good.
Very good.
How to manage this case?
I want to mention one thing that about the cause of hemorrhagic pleural effusion, pancreatitis must be taken into consideration because it is one of the important cause of hemorrhagic pleural effusion.
Left-sided pleural effusion and hemorrhagic.
And about the present day significance of Mantoux test, I must mention that Mantoux or quantiferon gold is only now important for latent tuberculosis.
It's LTBA.
Suppose we want to give a patient infliximab or other thing, we want to know whether he or she is suffering from latent tuberculosis, we will do the Mantoux. If it is positive, we will give the drug with a coverage of 80 drug for 2 type of 80 drug. Otherwise, when a patient is clinically evident tuberculosis, I think, I don't know, I also want the comment of Supriyo, Mantoux or quantiferon gold have any role when there is a clinically evident tuberculosis.
Now, there are no difference practically with tuberculin test and the gamma interferon releases. Both are not used in adults, but they are used in the diagnosis of tuberculosis as a criteria in childhood tuberculosis. If there is a Mantoux conversion, it will go. But in case of adult, the Mantoux is usually done to exclude other diseases. Like sometimes the tuberculosis and sarcoidosis, they are very similar. If Mantoux is negative, that goes opposing favor of sarcoidosis than tuberculosis, like that. But in adult, for the diagnosis of tuberculosis, the Mantoux has little role.
Sir, in common practice, what we do while before giving any biologics, as sir told, we want to exclude some latent tubercular infection. So we do Mantoux followed by IG IGRA, interferon gamma release assay. These are the common practice we do.
No, that is a specific situation.
Specific
and
situation.
Specific situation.
Sir, Ankan, how will manage this case? Just 2 lines.
So we started this patient on ATT regimen, so standard ATP regimen, and however, we did not finalize a diagnosis. We asked this patient.
No, you have not done therapeutic aspiration.
Yes, sir, we did therapeutic aspiration.
You have to tell in the examination first. You have to
Yes,
tell
sir.
therapeutic because a massive pleural effusion.
Yes, sir.
You have to tell
So therapeutic aspiration followed by we started isoniazid, rifampicin, pyrazinamide, and ethambutol.
If after therapeutic aspiration again it reaccumulates, if we have done multiple times it reaccumulates, what will suspect?
So we have to understand, sir, in certain cases of pleural effusion, even after starting ATT, there might be reactivation or iris-like features that we get in HIV. So we have to see the clinical status and the well-being first. However, if the patient continues to be developing pleural fluid even after 1 to 2 months of ATT therapy, we can go for thoracoscopy or sir biopsy.
So
if rapid accumulation, you have to suspect malignancy. Malignancy or drug-resistant tuberculosis also. And another thing, if it, for example, if it reaccumulates and you're suspecting what is pleurodesis, do you know what is pleurodesis?
Procedure that we do to remove the exact term I can't.
Pleurodesis means if there is
removal of the.
No. Fusion of the pleura.
Layer of the pleura. তুমি ওখানে doxycycline বা আগের tetracycline দিয়ে we used to
bleomycin,
over there.
bleomycin like this.
So the two
Mainly
layers
it's
of
the
the
treatment for pneumothorax.
Even also recurrent, if you're getting reaccumulation of fluid due to malignancy, you can do, or as I told for pneumothorax also, you have to approach both the pleura.
So in case of pneumothorax, when we are introducing intercostal tube, the pleurodesis is a must.
Yes.
And in case of pleural effusion, if the underlying lung is healthy, the lung expanded after aspiration, only then we can try pleurodesis. And the ideal chemicals, that is the talc, is the ideal chemical for pleurodesis.
Sir, one question, sir, one question. For example, when we are starting ATT in case of tuberculosis, if for example, in lymph node tuberculosis, if the signs or symptoms they aggravate, we usually suspect. For example, if the lymph node become red and hot and acute inflammation, suspect iris, immune reconstructive inflammatory syndrome. Yes. If there is a chance that after starting ATT, if the pleural fluids also accumulates, can we think that iris also has happened? Can we think?
Yes, there is a paradoxical reaction sometimes happen. In those cases, we have to look for how the diagnosis was done. It is confirmed tuberculosis or it is a clinically diagnosed tuberculosis. In case of confirmed tuberculosis, we can continue and observe. But if it is the clinically diagnosed tuberculosis, and then we have to re-examine the patient. If there is any suspicion of malignancy, then we should go for biopsy.
Sir, is there role of steroid in pleural effusion?
No, there is no role of steroid. No role of steroid because to prevent fibrosis, and it has been found that the role of steroid in preventing fibrosis is very doubtful. But in case of pericardial effusion, when we cannot aspirate the patient repeatedly, and in those cases we are giving steroid in the hope that it will prevent fibrosis.
Only there is two indications of steroid. One CNS, one pericardial.
It is that in case of pleural effusion, it is the removal of the protein. Pleural protein is very important. So aspiration is the most important thing to prevent fibrosis.
Pericardial effusion, meningeal tuberculosis, and iris. There are 3 indications in tuberculosis and adrenal tuberculosis also.
Adrenal tuberculosis.
Adrenal.
Yes.
No,
There is a supplementation.
in miliary tuberculosis, sir.
In miliary tuberculosis, if there is associated meningeal involvement, number one. Number two, if the patient is very serious, in
Very
case of
seriously.
serious to
Moribund patient.
Yes, sir.
the term is used by our teacher is that to save time,
And another
so
is,
that
sir,
the antitubercular drug can be effective.
another is, sir, urinary tuberculosis.
Urinary again to prevent fibrosis, but their
Yes.
role is very doubtful.
Yes,
Initial.
yes.
And one of the new cause of hemorrhagic pleural effusion is after CABG.
See,
Sir, have you seen any pleural effusion hemorrhagic following filariasis? Because
No.
no, I have worked in the Birbhum districts for 3 or 4 years. I have seen many cases of filariasis, but I have never seen a case of pleural effusion due to filariasis.
but ascites with hemorrhagic ascites, some cases of filariasis
Yes,
have been documented.
yes.
But I think not for pleural effusion. Sir, we have learned from many things from
Professor
you,
Pal,
sir.
Yes,
Professor
yes.
Pal,
Yes,
can we
yes.
call it a
Thank
day?
you. Yes, yes, yes. Thank you. Thank you. First, my thanks to Dr. Ankon Pathak. Excellent and brilliantly you have faced so many questions from teachers of so many states. Then I am very much thankful to Professor Supriyo Sarkar for leading the discussion of various aspects of this disease, and Dr. Dijen Das, nicely you have demonstrated the videos and that will be distributed to all the students. Very much thankful to Dr. Manoranjan Behera, Dr. Jayanto Panda, Dr. Giridhari Kaur, Dr. S.B. Ganguly, and finally Professor M.K. Roy. He is the pioneer of this
Yes, yes.
master class.
We are very much thankful to Professor M.K. Roy, Dr.
Thank you,
Dijen Das, and
Moranjan.
Dr.
Thank you,
Sarkar.
Moranjan.
Yes, sir.
Moranjan,
Thank you,
please
thank you.
attend our meeting. Please attend our meeting.
Sir,
You
I am
are
also.
actually you always distribute some knowledge to us. We learned many things from you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, everybody. So, good night. I am leaving.
Good night.
Thank
Hey,
you, sir.
Kaushik, record complete করেছো? Kaushik?
Sir, one thing I want to tell. We have learned many things from Division and Dr. Sarkar.